What if the person you love stopped loving you but never said a word? What if the end began not with shouting but silence? No slammed doors, no dramatic goodbyes, just a shift, almost imperceptible. Like the moment twilight slips into night, unnoticed until it's already dark. Ask yourself this: would you recognize it? Or would you keep holding on, hoping, believing that love, once given, must always remain? You see, love isn't loud, it doesn't announce itself, and it doesn't always say farewell. Sometimes it just disappears, not all at once, but slowly, like water leaking through cupped hands. You feel something is missing, but you can't quite name it. A glance that lingers a second less, a laugh that doesn't reach the eyes, a presence that starts to feel like absence. You tell yourself it's just a phase, just stress, just time, but inside your body knows. Because the heart senses long before the mind admits. There's an old Zen story, one that's survived centuries, not because it tells us what to do, but because it forces us to see. It begins with a wanderer, a man who had once tasted love so pure he believed it would never end. He had felt the warmth of belonging, the comfort of shared silence, the intoxication of being seen and chosen. But one day, that love began to vanish. Not in a moment, not with betrayal, but with space. Words that once danced now felt rehearsed. Touches became mechanical. Time together turned into something to be endured, not savored. And so, the wanderer left in search of understanding. High into the mountains, where a sage was said to live, one who had seen the nature of all things. When he arrived, the sage did not speak. He only listened. As the wanderer poured out his grief, his confusion, his desperate need to make sense of the loss. Then the sage took him into a garden. He pointed to a flower, a single bloom bent by the breeze, its petals starting to fall. It was once full of color, the sage said, but now it begins to fade. Do you hear it scream? The wanderer shook his head. Does it beg to hold on to spring? Again the wanderer said no. Love, said the sage, does not die with thunder, it dissolves quietly. He turned to a bowl of water, dipped his hand in. Let the droplets slide from his fingers. See this, this is the first sign, he said. They begin to drift. You will still see them, but their soul is no longer beside yours. They don't laugh like they used to. The spark in their eye becomes a flicker. Conversations shrink. The silences grow, and not the comfortable kind, but the heavy kind. The kind that fills the room with unsaid things. They don't reach for you. They don't seek your gaze. And when they smile, it feels distant, as if their joy now lives somewhere else. That is the first gesture of love fading, a soft, subtle withdrawal, a presence that lingers physically but vanishes emotionally. Have you felt it? Have you ever sat across from someone who once made you feel infinite, and suddenly you feel invisible? The wanderer listened, his breath shallow. But if it's so quiet, he asked, how do we see it before it's too late? The sage smiled, not cruelly, but with a sadness shaped by truth. The heart always knows, he said. It is wiser than the mind. You will feel it in their touch, in their delay to respond, in the way their eyes slide past yours. It's not what they say, it's what they stop saying. It's not where they go, it's what they no longer come back from. Still, most people pretend. Because familiarity is a powerful drug, because the memory of love is easier to face than the void it leaves. The wanderer looked down. He had known those moments. The strained dinners, the empty gestures, the way he held onto routines, hoping they could breathe life back into something already dead. The sage then lifted a small mirror and handed it to him. Look. The wanderer saw his face, tired, aged by grief, but deeper still, he saw someone who had tried to carry a dying love alone. When someone stops loving you, the sage said, they don't just move away from you. They change the way they see you. Their tone becomes polite, neutral, almost transactional. Their touch lacks warmth. Their words become logistical. The intimacy you once shared, it vanishes into formality. And perhaps most painfully, they no longer light up around you. You feel it, you know it, but still you ask, is it me? Maybe because love doesn't only change the other, it reshapes you. In the silence, you start to contort yourself. Try harder, speak sweeter, offer more. But the love that's fading cannot be resurrected by effort. The sage placed a hand on the wanderer's shoulder. You can't hold water in your hands, and you can't beg a flower not to fall apart. Real love cannot be forced to stay, and love that is forced is no longer love. It's control, fear, possession. Many people, the sage continued, try to win back affection with sacrifice. They believe love can be bargained for. But love is not a debt, it is not owed. It is a current, and it flows freely or not at all. If someone has begun to leave you, let them. This is not despair, it is liberation. Not resignation, but acceptance. Because holding on to someone who no longer chooses you is the surest way to lose yourself. Think about it. How much of yourself have you given to someone who's already gone? How much of your spirit have you traded for fragments of a love that no longer breathes? The wanderer stood quietly, the wind whispering through the trees. So what now? He asked. The sage looked out over the valley. The sun was setting, the light golden and soft, the kind that makes endings look like beginnings. What remains, he said, is what you were before love, what you've become through it, and what you can now become free from its weight. Love transforms us, even when it ends, but that end is not a void, it's space, room for growth, for rediscovery. You are not what someone else feels for you. You are not their affection, or the lack of it. You are the silence that remains and what you choose to fill it with. The wanderer took one last look at the mirror. He still looked like himself, but inside he was changed. Not because he was loved, but because he had finally understood what it meant to let go. He bowed to the sage and left, not to chase someone who had already turned away, but to walk forward toward what still waited for him. So now, ask yourself, have you felt it? That quiet withdrawal, the soft, almost invisible signs that someone has stopped loving you. Maybe you've noticed the way they no longer share their inner world. Maybe you've caught them looking through you, not at you. Or maybe you've been the one fading. If so, this is your invitation, not to beg, not to plead, but to honor the truth. Letting go is not failure. It is not weakness. It is choosing to live in reality, not illusion. To love, not through control, but through freedom. The love that remains when we stop holding it hostage, that is the love worth keeping. And if it's gone, let it go, not in bitterness, but in gratitude. Because even lost love has shaped you. It taught you how to feel, how to hope, how to hurt, and now how to heal. So let them go, and let yourself return to the quiet strength of your own presence, to the path still waiting beneath your feet, to the parts of yourself that were never dependent on someone else's gaze. And remember this, love, real love, doesn't die, it transforms. And sometimes, in the silence of goodbye, it teaches us more than we ever learned in the embrace.